Have you ever struggled with something for weeks, months, maybe even years, only to come across a new perspective or a new way of looking at the thing that automatically allows you to become unstuck within a matter of seconds? That's the power of mindset shifts. And in this video, we're going to talk about 3 mindset shifts that can help us tackle something that we probably have all struggled with for years, which is discipline. After reading everything I could on the subject of discipline, I have found that these 3 mindset shifts help me immensely to build my discipline muscle as effortlessly as possible. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jorge Calaos. I'm a business lawyer based in Florida, specializing in high stakes lawsuits. And in this channel, we explore the principles and the strategies to help us live more productive, meaningful, and fulfilling lives. Mindset shift number 1, discipline is a muscle and not an immutable trait. A concept that's related to this mindset shift is a concept that I've talked about before on this channel, which is the concept of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Now, this concept was either created or heavily popularized by this book right here, Mindset by Carol Dweck. And that whole book is effectively about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. To tie it back to what we were talking about, a fixed mindset looks at discipline as an immutable trait that can't be changed, and a growth mindset looks at discipline as a muscle that can be grown. And so the problem with a fixed mindset, the problem with looking at discipline, or really almost anything else, as an immutable trait that can't be changed, is that anytime we fail to exercise discipline, which will happen very, very often because discipline is not something that we can be perfect with every single day, every single hour of every single day. And so every time we inevitably fail to be disciplined, if we believe that that is an immutable trait that can't be changed, then we conclude that we are simply just not disciplined people. And that is a very disempowering belief. But if we adopt the growth mindset way of looking at discipline, we look at it as a muscle. And so when we inevitably fail to be disciplined from time to time, we don't look at that as a reflection of who we are as people, who we are and who we can't change, but rather we look at it as a failure of the muscle of discipline to be exercised. And so we take that failure not as a reflection of we suck, we take that failure as an opportunity to say we can grow this muscle even bigger. And so when you have that mindset of discipline as a muscle that can be built, that is a much more empowering way to look at discipline. And when we look at it that way, we end up being more disciplined because we have more faith that we can, even after we fail, we can the next time be disciplined, we can train our discipline muscle. And so not only are we more disciplined more often, but because we view it as something that we can grow, we end up growing our discipline muscle instead of accepting the current level of discipline that we have in our lives right now as some sort of immutable trait. And so the cool thing is that this goes on for pretty much our entire life. So it's not just how much more disciplined could I be in 1 year if I focus on growing my discipline muscle, but think about it not just in 1 year or 1 month, think about it in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, how much more disciplined we can be if we adopt the mindset of, hey, I'm gonna grow my discipline muscle, I'm gonna step in every single day trying to grow this discipline muscle every single week, or whichever way you wanna look at it. But the point is that if you adopt that mindset and you're consistent with that kind of approach, then over, let's say 30 years, you could be a disciplined monster. So that's one thing that is helpful, is that you can picture that vision of yourself in 30 years, and that can be really motivating. But the other part of it that's also helpful is more in the micro, and that is that if you view discipline as a muscle, all you have to do is make it stronger this week than it was last week. And so what you're doing is you're taking this maybe massive challenge of becoming disciplined, and you're just saying, let me see how much more disciplined I can be this week than I was last week. And so you're just trying to build more muscle today. You're trying to build more muscle this week or this month, as opposed to trying to be a perfectly disciplined individual. And that approach, what I call the Kaizen approach of getting a little bit better today than you were yesterday, reduces the amount of overwhelm that you feel and makes it more likely that you will develop your discipline muscle. And also this Kaizen mentality also understands that if you use the muscle, you will grow the muscle, but if you don't use the muscle, you will lose the muscle. And so it not only encourages and empowers you to take it day by day and eventually grow big over a long period of time, but it also holds you accountable because you understand that if you don't use it, you lose it. Now, this mindset shift actually ties into mindset shift number 2, which is that the harder something is to do, the more important it is that you do it. If we want to be disciplined, it's important that we reframe discomfort as growth. Another way of looking at this is the old saying, no pain, pain, no gain. And so in other words, if something isn't hard to do, it's not building our discipline muscle. If something is easy to do, we don't need to use our discipline muscle to do that thing. And so it is in the moments where it is the hardest to do the thing that we can most build our discipline muscle, because that is when we would be using our discipline muscle to carry the most amount of weight that it can possibly carry. Another way that I like to look at this is not just about the discipline muscle, but it's more about your personal journey and your personal evolution as a human being. And so when things are really, really hard, that is when your inner demons, which we all have, by the way, that is when your inner demons are being the loudest. And so if you can overcome your inner demons while they're being the loudest, if you can tell them to shut up while they're being the loudest, that is when you can weaken them the most. Because if they're not talking, if it's not really hard to do the thing, if there's no inner demons within you being loud, then there's no chance to tell them to shut up. There's no chance to overpower them. But if things are really hard and every single one of your inner demons is battling you and being really loud, and you can tell them to shut up and just do the thing anyways, your inner demons lose power. And when your inner demons lose power, that creates less anxiety, less depression, it creates more joy, it creates more happiness, it creates more fulfillment, and it just creates for a better life overall. But again, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so those inner demons will never go away completely, and you have to be consistent about telling them to shut up when they get really, really loud. Otherwise, if they start making noise and you don't tell them to shut up, they're going to start becoming empowered and they're going to get louder and louder and louder. So you do have to be consistent about putting them in their place whenever they arise, but understand that the more you put them in their place, the lower the volume of the inner demons is going to be, the stronger your discipline muscle is going to be, and the easier it's going to be more consistent. Especially because if you're doing that over a long period of time, it's going to become habitual. Now, I'll conclude all that with one of my favorite quotes by Tony Robbins, which says that it is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. And oftentimes, the harder it is to make the decision, the more you are shaping your destiny. And finally, mindset shift number 3 is to rely on identity and not willpower. Now, I don't know if I've ever talked about this book. I don't think that I have, which is interesting because it's my all-time favorite book. It's the second book that I ever read, and it completely changed my life. Now, the guy who wrote this book, Maxwell Maltz, was a plastic surgeon. And something that interested him was that some people who got the plastic surgery, their identities changed along with the surgery. And some people that got the surgery, their identities didn't change with the surgery. And so in large part out of curiosity, he started delving deep into this concept of identity and self-image. And what he writes about in this book is that self-image is what he calls a servo mechanism. Now, the best way that I have found to explain what a servo mechanism is to think of a missile. With a missile, you set a target for that missile. So let's say that the missile starts here and you want to make the missile go all the way over here. And so you aim it at this point. But what the missile does, it doesn't go in a straight line, but rather it is a servo mechanism that serves itself. And so it's going towards the goal, towards the end point, and then it kind of shifts a little bit and then it corrects itself. And then it kind of shifts a little bit and then it corrects itself. And it kind of shifts a little bit and then it corrects itself. And then it eventually reaches its goal, but it's not a direct line hit. It's something that continues to correct itself whenever it's off track. And so your self-image is like that endpoint. And so the case that he makes in that book is that when you adopt your self-image, you will behave in ways that are consistent with that self-image. Anytime you start to deviate from your accepted self-image, you course correct like a servo mechanism. Your self-image is the servo mechanism that is correcting you to go towards what your self-image is. And so if you have a poor self-image, you will act in congruence with that self-image. And if you have a great self-image, you will act in congruence with that great self-image. And so anytime you're trying to change a part of who you are, the way to tackle it is through your self-image. Because if you don't change your self-image, you will not change. Because the servo mechanism will always direct you to the self-image that you currently have. And so if you don't believe that you are a disciplined person, if your self-image is not that of someone who is a disciplined person, then in other words, if your self-image is that you are not a disciplined person, anytime you try to be disciplined, your self-image will course correct you and make you a not disciplined person. Conversely, if you believe and truly adopt the self-image that you are a disciplined person, you will course correct anytime you're not being disciplined to being disciplined to stay congruent with that self-image. Now, it's not just a matter of telling yourself that you are this kind of person. That does help. Affirmations help, incantations help. Convincing yourself that you are that kind of person is the way that you create that self-image. But the way that you convince yourself is by giving yourself proof. And the way you give yourself proof that you are in fact a disciplined person is by being a disciplined person. And so you have to challenge yourself to be disciplined for a consistent enough period of time until your self-image really starts to shift. One way that you can get started right away is to tell yourself, I am a disciplined person. I am a man or woman of discipline. And so that way you're using that servo mechanism for you instead of it being used against you. Now, if you like this video, I think you'll really enjoy this video that I made right here about 5 1-minute habits that 10x'd my discipline. And as always, if you enjoy this content and want to see more of it, make sure to join the community by subscribing to the channel and check out the link in the description box below where you can sign up for my weekly email newsletter where I send you content like this every Monday via email to get you started for the week. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.